Television's longest-running, proudly lowbrow, working-class cartoon family has a strange habit. Over the last 3 decades, they've referenced William Shakespeare more than any other writer in history. We are taught to treat the Bard as a sacred text. His words are presented as elite, high art, something you study in a university seminar to prove that you are educated. Today, attending one of these plays usually means putting on a tuxedo or an evening gown, sitting in hushed reverence and pretending you completely grasp every line of 400-year-old slang. The environment is engineered for exclusivity. Over the centuries, a cultural encasement formed around the work. We put the plays behind velvet ropes. We transformed them from popular entertainment into difficult academic obligations. The cartoon takes the exact opposite approach. When Homer or Bart recite a 17th-century line, they aren't trying to elevate the sitcom status or impress a theater critic. The show treats the most revered texts in English literature as a punching bag, a shiny object to mock, and a rapid-fire delivery system for jokes. It is a deliberate escalation of disrespect. The engagement starts at the surface level with casual disrespect. By the later seasons, the playwright is quite literally used as wallpaper. There is a fast food restaurant in the Springfield Mall called Shakespeare's Fried Chicken, reducing him to a corporate mascot. In a Halloween episode, he appears as a zombie strictly so Homer can shoot him with a shotgun. You don't need to have read Romeo and Juliet to get these jokes. The show relies entirely on his massive cultural footprint, proving an audience will recognize the reference in half a second based on a name and a ruffled collar alone. They even turn theater folklore into slapstick. There is a superstition that saying the name of the Scottish play inside a theater brings bad luck. The cartoon doesn't explain this history. It teaches you the rule by having the family repeatedly say Macbeth to trigger 6 consecutive lightning strikes on a highly respected British actor. Then you move up to Tier 2, where characters actively wrestle with the material. They begin unintentionally embodying tragedies or arguing directly against Elizabethan philosophy. This is where the text gets weaponized by rivals. A character known for his snobbish superiority tries to outsmart an 8-year-old by quoting Macbeth to justify setting a bomb. The 8-year-old immediately fires back, correcting his citation and pointing out that his actual quote is from Hamlet. At this tier, the text ceases to be a museum piece and becomes an everyday, functional tool. The words work perfectly regardless of whether a character misreads them, hates them, or tries to use them to blow someone up. The most aggressive tactic is structural hijacking. This is where the writers take full 4-hour cosmic tragedies and adapt them into 5-minute cartoon segments. This chart shows a massive 4-hour theatrical runtime, shrinking down to a 5-minute block of television. Notice how the core structural nodes, the beats of the story, remain perfectly aligned. The narrative architecture of these tragedies is so strong, it cannot be broken by cartoon absurdity. The indestructible bones stay intact. Look at how they modify the mechanics of those nodes. Shakespeare invented the soliloquy to give the audience a sacred window into a character's inner turmoil. The cartoon uses that exact same mechanism as a simple notepad, where a bartender can loudly remind himself to commit a crime. They aggressively lower the stakes. They strip out royal ambition and replace it with mundane, working-class motivations. A queen sees a pile of poisoned bodies and decides she would rather die than mop up the mess. The tragic machine still runs flawlessly on a fear of household chores. If a 10-year-old can follow the emotional stakes of a 4-hour tragedy in under 5 minutes, it reveals that the narrative machine is independent of the poetry. The show demonstrates that the story tracks perfectly even when the verse is gone. The show's 30-year streak of mocking the Bard pulls him out of the lecture hall and back into the street. The original 16th-century audience for these plays were known as the groundlings. They were entirely working-class tradespeople, apprentices, and laborers. These texts were not written for quiet study. They were built for a rowdy crowd standing in the mud who paid a single penny to see slapstick, severed heads, and fart jokes. The show ignores the sacred status of the work. It treats the plays as raw material for a joke, breaking the barrier of high-culture elitism. This removal of the academic filter is a historically accurate restoration. It puts the plays exactly where they started, back in front of a loud, easily distracted audience looking for popular entertainment. Shakespeare's work remains vital because it is resilient enough to be fed into a comedy machine and still produce a laugh.